Joe, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we're very excited to have you and to have this conversation. I don't want to say it's an interview, it's more of a conversation because we want to know what's your platform, why we should support you. And I know your time is very valuable, so we're going to be mindful of that, and we're going to run through the process quickly, okay? So first up, I'm going to start with ladies first, and I will start with Amy Ferraro. Will you introduce yourself to the viewing audience, please? Amy? Did we lose Amy? Amy? Okay, I think okay, so let's move over to Judge Cynthia Dustin. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cynthia Dustin Cruz. I'm currently the judge in Las Vegas Justice Court Department 5. I've been an attorney for 20 years, and actually over 20 years, and I've been in this seat for over 11 years, taking into consideration what my job is as a public servant to actually do the work that I was elected to do, both on the bench and off the bench. I'm currently the chief judge of the court. I have lots of fun things to talk about what I've been doing since I got elected in 2012, and I look forward to the dialogue with you today. And I think we lost Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear anything. So my name's Marla Renteria. I am running for Henderson Justice Court Department 1. I was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. I actually moved down to Las Vegas for law school in 2008. I moved to Henderson in 2010. That's where I chose to raise my son. I did attend law school as a single mother, put myself through law school, which was a challenge in and of itself. I think my background does inform the kind of judge that I will be on the bench. I truly believe that qualified diversity on the bench promotes better justice and inspires and promotes public confidence in the judicial system is the reason I'm running. If elected, I would be the first Mexican-American woman on the bench in Henderson. I think that the diversity of life experience, not just my diversity of cultural background, I think will allow me a better opportunity to connect with the individuals that appear before me in justice court, to know what they're going through. I've appeared in front of a number of justices, I think, that are out of touch. I don't think it's because of any maliciousness, but they're out of touch with what the average person is going through. And I'm hoping that when I come to the court, that I will be able to bring equity, I will bring fairness, while at the same time promoting the safety of our community.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Amy Ferreira. I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department 8. I am exceptionally passionate about our community and about the law, so I think this is definitely the best way that I can serve our community. I am currently a hearing master with Las Vegas Justice Court. I was appointed to the bench in 2020. As a hearing master, I perform a number of duties that overlap with those of a justice of the peace. In 2022, I was named Las Vegas Justice Court Employee of the Year. Prior to my appointment, I was with the District Attorney's Office, serving the community in that capacity for 13 years. During my time at the District Attorney's Office, I prosecuted cases involving some of the most vulnerable members of our community. I spent several years on the Special Victims Unit, prosecuting child sexual assault cases, dealing with victims 10 years old and younger. I started the first ever Clark County District Attorney's Office Animal Cruelty Unit, and I was twice nationally recognized for my work on behalf of animal victims. And I finished out my career as team chief of the Domestic Violence Unit. I'm super excited about the possibility of being your next Justice of the Peace for Department 8.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Bradford. I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department of Peace, Department 2. A little bit of background on me. I am at the Public Defender's Office, Clark County. I've been there for about 6 years. Before that, I actually had my own firm in California. I did a lot of civil law. I did some family law. I also did some bankruptcies, but primarily civil law. I am running for judge because I'm very, very knowledgeable on the law. I actually have a couple of cases right now before the Supreme Court of Nevada. I really am there to really make a voice for the voiceless. I practiced in California and Nevada, and so I have a lot of diversity. I'm actually the only person in Las Vegas Justice Court, the only African American running right now, and I agree that we do need a lot more diversity on the bench. Again, very, very passionate about what I do. I love helping my clients. I love looking at the law. I love interpreting it. I love arguing it. And I, as your next judge, would, again, make sure everyone in my courtroom is treated with dignity, is treated with respect, and is heard, have their voices heard, regardless if they're a witness, regardless if they're a victim, or if they're a defendant in the case. And so I'm very, very excited on this journey, and I think I will be a great judge. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, my camera's having a little bit of an issue. I'm trying to get that figured out. Hopefully, I can get it done before this is over. But my name is Jonathan Cooper. I'm currently a hearing master with the 8th Judicial District Court. I've been doing that since 2022. Before that, I was at the Public Defender's Office, and before that, I was at the Clark County District Attorney's Office. So I've seen both sides of the aisle. I understand how the law works on both sides, both prosecution and defense. I was a veteran, so I definitely am familiar with service. And again, being a hearing master now, that's what I do. I'm currently on the bench, and I protect domestic violence victims from their abusers. I do the domestic violence protection orders, and I've been doing that for about 2 years now. Absolutely love the job, and I think it's very important work. Definitely looking forward to the conversation, and looking forward to the election process. Thank you.
I guess this means they want me to go, but I thought I was on at 6:15, but I'll go now. So you guys caught me eating dinner. I'm Ray Kennedy. I'm running for Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge, Department 5. I used to work at Municipal Court as an administrator, and so I saw firsthand that we could do better for our community. My goal is to create a community-centered court that is innovative, fiscally responsible, transparent, and efficient. And I have 3 main ways that I intend to do that I hope to get into this evening. I'm excited that people are going to be able to ask questions because hearing directly from the community is really important. camera. No, not.
Dr. Blessing, you're on mute if you are speaking or asking us any questions.
Can you hear me, folks?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Go ahead. So, okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but technical difficulties. So I'll start with Mr. Cooper. Tell us about your particular court and what the cases will be that you'll be seeing, you'll be hearing, and then we can segue into seeing the questions that we're going to ask. So we'll start with you in North Las Vegas.
Perfect. Thank you. So as a justice of the peace, what I would do is I would be hearing, oh, I think my camera's working. What I would do is I'd be hearing all types of cases. So I'd be hearing cases from criminal cases, I'd be hearing eviction cases, and also small civil matters as well. So the types of cases would definitely vary. I think justice of the peace is an extremely important position because you do hear all the different types of cases. And quite frankly, the first time people meet an elected official, oftentimes it is a judge. That's usually the person that they see and they actually interact with at any time. And obviously the process is extremely important. So yeah, that would be the type of cases I'd be hearing.
Okay, and so the question will go for all the other candidates, and I'll start with you, Amy Ferreira.
Hello. So in justice court, I would be handling civil and or criminal cases. Our Las Vegas Justice Court also handles evictions, it handles small claims, it handles traffic matters, it handles initial appearance court. And so my specific assignment would not yet be determined. However, those are all the different types of cases that Las Vegas Justice Court does see. I do think that Las Vegas Justice Court is one of the most important positions because oftentimes it's people's first encounter with the justice system. And I think as the person sitting as the judge, you can make or break somebody's experience, whether that's a positive experience or a negative experience. And so I think catching people at the very beginning of the process can really impact their experience moving forward.
Okay. Marla?
Yes. So as a justice of the peace out in Henderson, it is my understanding the courts handle, we handle all the same types of cases, but because there are a limited number of judges out there, it sounds like I would for sure be handling the small claims cases. I would be handling the evictions. I would be having the criminal misdemeanor cases, as well as the preliminary hearings for felony cases to determine whether evidence has established them going forward to preliminary hearing, particularly because I'd be in an outlying court. The right to a jury trial for domestic violence cases was actually codified in, 2019 is when the decision came. So I'd also be hearing misdemeanor jury trial cases as well as evictions. And so it's a whole wide array of cases that I would be handling to have to be knowledgeable for. It is also my understanding we would handle the weekend initial appearance court for people that are kind of detained over the weekend that need to get their hearings regarding their bail at the outset. It's really important that a judge be knowledgeable. I would have to be up to speed on everything. Have to be able to handle everything efficiently, make sure that I'm providing an equitable and friendly environment, because as Amy has already said, and as I said, we are some of the first people that they're going to often encounter in this system. And regardless of what the outcome is, I can tell you that when litigants feel seen and heard, they're more likely to accept a ruling if they feel like they've been treated fairly. And so that is my intention, is to make sure that it is the safest place possible for individuals to be, because it is obviously oftentimes the worst day in their life when they're having to appear in justice court.
Mm-hmm. And Judge Cynthia Dustin, you are a current sitting judge. So share with our viewing audience some of the cases that you see now that you preside over. Yes.
So Las Vegas Justice Court, just so that I can make sure, and I can talk about, it's the same throughout the state as to the limited jurisdiction that a justice court does. So what this means is we are the starting court for misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, and felony matters to come into the system. What this also means is we do have something that's called an initial appearance court, which is when somebody is arrested on one of these criminal charges. It goes before our court for a determination underneath the Valdez-Jimenez and underneath statute as to potential release conditions. The law requires that we default to an own recognizance release unless the state can meet a clear and convincing burden that other means that are the least restrictive means necessary are required to make sure, one, that they'll return to court, and two, public safety. The next part that a justice court does, that state, we handle protective orders that are of non-intimate relationships. We handle civil cases that are less than $15,000 in controversy. We handle small claims cases. We handle evictions. We do the dreaded traffic matters. So we have a very robust line of what's going to happen and how we intersect with the community. For example, Las Vegas Justice Court in the calendar year of 2023 had over 200,000 new matters submitted into our court system. Now, that could be from everything from a traffic citation, a regular citation, a felony type case, it could be an eviction case, it could be a small claims case, it could be a civil matter. But we have that level of matters and volume coming into our court. I have experience in handling every single type of these dockets that our court does, and I've been doing this since I got on the bench in January of 2013. And our court does more than that. We also have a very robust treatment court system. I myself preside over an adult drug court and a repeat offender DUI court, and our goal with every treatment court is to connect people that might be facing substance abuse issues, mental health issues, housing conditions that are causing them to intersect with the criminal justice system, and that we can find pathways to help connect them with treatment services while holding them accountable to get them that they are back being a productive member of our community and stop being involved in the criminal justice system. So this means we work with many different types of people from all different avenues, be it, unfortunately, you are unhoused and you are living in a tunnel, to something that you have family that's there, but now you're getting involved in the system, and we want to see how we can help utilize a lot of resources in our community to stop that issue. So okay. I've been doing that since 2016. I know our court has many specialty courts, and we're always looking at helping and seeing how we can change the dynamic before everybody gets in there. And hopefully, I know everybody else is going to talk about the same stuff. But
yeah, we're going to talk about that. And so, Crystal, Ms. Bradford? Ms. Bradford? You're on mute? Yes.
Yes. Okay, sorry, it was connecting. Same thing.
I think her internet is going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Preliminary hearings, small civil matters, temporary restraining orders. They have also started something recently called the Strip Corridor Court. I know that Department 2 currently has that, and that's for smaller crimes that are done on the strip corridor, so that a lot of the defendants that are having like homelessness types crimes are not getting these very, very harsh penalties, but instead they are getting help. And that's kind of, I think, what Judge Cruz was really talking about helping people. Not only are we the first, usually the first courtroom that they go to, but we are also the place where we're trying to instill the trust in the judicial system. And a lot of people do not have trust in the judicial system. And that's very important, because this is where we want people to come and handle their matters. We don't want them handling on the street. We don't want it, we want them to come in court. We want them to have the trust of us that we are going to look at every case. We are going to make an impartial and fair ruling on the case. We're going to follow the law, and we're going to instill that trust in them that we are absolutely working to better their lives. And so, along with we do a lot of bail hearings as well as the justice court system. So again, making sure that the community is safe, and making sure that people will return to court. So a variety of different things, smaller criminal matters. And again, there are many programs, like I said, the Strip Corridor, that the court system would see.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Princess Dr. Blessing has just joined us. And Dr. Blessing, I'll have you segue into your question. And so we'll have that, we'll present her questions to our entire panel. Okay. And you have 2 minutes to answer. Go ahead, Dr. Blessing.
Good evening, everyone. So my first question is, as a judge, which of these is the most important to you? Which of these three? Is it public safety, judicial conduct, or criminal justice reform? That's my first question. Should I say my questions?
No. We'll go with the first question. So okay. What of the three sectors, public safety, judicial conduct, and criminal justice reform, which one of those has more priority within your court? Should you be elected and we have a sitting judge with us, which one of those are more, if your court addresses any of those, which one is more important? And we'll start with the sitting judge, Judge Cynthia.
Well, I think going into the tenets of what a judge's role is, I think judicial integrity is probably one of the key aspects that I think is going to be number one, because you can't do anything else if, as a judge, you don't have integrity. We're supposed to be constitutional safeguards. We're supposed to be fair and impartial. We're supposed to be able to look at what's going on and identify if there's a systemic problem and starting to see how we work on improving things. You can't have fairness if you don't have judicial integrity on the bench. And that is one of my most forefront avenues that I've always been committed on. You can't have a respectful forum if you don't have that judicial efficacy. You can't have that advocacy on behalf of making sure that your court is a court of the people for a matter to be heard unless you are following the tenets of being an ethical judge. So I think that's always going to be my number one.
Yes, I'll be there. Candidate forum, May 22nd. What was the other one?
The other one's next.
Okay, sorry. He's conducting other business. That's okay. It's election season, and we understand you're doing a lot of candidate forums. So, Amy, the same question for you. Weigh
Yes,
in
right.
on those three, please.
Absolutely. I think they are all so important. And I think that every sitting judge should be concerned with all of those things. However, I think the number one most important thing, the starting point for everybody, has to be your judicial conduct. I mean, it's really easy to achieve community safety or alternative sentencing, but if you're not doing it in a legally appropriate or a judicially ethical way, then what are you doing sitting there to begin with? And so while I think they are all extremely important, and I think that all three of those things always need to be taken into account, I just don't think you get past, step one if you're not concerned with judicial behavior and being ethical and always being fair. I mean, at the end of the day, you'd like to think anybody running for this position is doing so because they are very concerned with justice. And I think part of justice is fairness, and part of fairness is being ethical under every circumstance. Whether you agree with the particular position or not is irrelevant when you're sitting in that seat. You have to follow the rules of judicial conduct in every part of your job, and quite frankly, in your personal life as well. I mean, you're representing this community and you've got a big kind of burden to carry. And I think the community deserves somebody who is absolutely concerned with judicial ethics.
I'll move on. Thank you so much for responding. Marla?
Yes.
We'd love to hear your answer on that.
So it's really difficult to say. They're also intertwined. I think it's hard to say like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Obviously, judicial conduct is one of the biggest reasons that I'm running, as I see too often that judges are out of touch with the people they're appearing before. I see them lose their cool. I see them make decisions based on bias and just our personal beliefs or personal feelings about what's happening, which is really needs to be taken out of it. So definitely judicial conduct is important, but I think some of the things that we really need to focus on is sort of this criminal justice reform, because the problem is this: if the rules that are set up, even if I'm following the rules and I'm doing everything ethically, but the system itself is set up in a way that is disparaging racial disparities, social economic disparities, if the rules as they're set up violate that, I think we do need to be pushing as judges in proper judicial conduct as far as the way we institute our systems, how people are diverted, how we accept negotiations. So I do think a measure of criminal justice reform, obviously conduct and ethics are always important. Public safety has always got to be at the forefront of the decisions we're making. But we're really the system itself has to run fairly, and we have to run fairly within that system. So I do think, and I think we've seen it. I think we've set up initial appearance court over the years. I mean, advocated for it, and the judges answered the call, and we figured out ways that we could address some of those social disparities where people were being held in custody far longer before they ever saw a judge. So I do think criminal justice reform is something that we need to work within. And I think if the overall system is fair, if we're behaving appropriately within that system, then I think we're going to start seeing fairer results.
Okay. Ms. Bradford, thank you so much. Ms. Bradford?
Yes, I think judicial conduct is first and foremost one of the most important things. Again, we are the judge, and this is our courtroom at that point. We are the go-to person. We are the ones that's going to set up the community safety, right? We're going to be the ones that put those kind of things in place. We are the ones that are setting certain bail conditions and things like that to make sure the community is safe. And I think with the judicial conduct does come the reform. One thing I've learned about law in my life is that law goes with times, right? You know, the certain things that we are doing today was not acceptable 20 years ago, right? And I think that we are making a lot of progress, but we are not 100% there yet for complete fairness. Again, we have IA court. We are getting people who are getting arrested, getting their 72-hour hearing done immediately, them knowing their charges, knowing why they're in custody for. 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't in place. 30, 40 years ago, or a little bit longer, you didn't even have a right to a public defender. You now have that right to have an attorney speak with you, have an attorney talk with you. So I think what really goes hand in hand is the conduct, because the judicial conduct is what controls the courtroom. That is the person that's going to say, that's the person that's going to set the standards for the safety. But the conduct is more past tense and the reform is in the future. And we can never get to where we want to be as a society until we learn from the past, but move forward. We cannot stand at a standstill. I love this panel. I love the diversity in this panel. And again, judicial reform has created that. So I think that they kind of go hand in hand. And I think in the climate that we have, of course, safety. I think just with what happened in our legal community last week, a courtroom is supposed to be a place where you feel safe, right? And who's doing that safety? The judge. The judge is running that courtroom. So again, that goes back to that judicial conduct. But reform and just making progress, which is what we are doing, and I'm very proud to see that. I think especially with the strip corridor courtroom and trying to get people help and starting programs and drug programs, mental health issues, again, starts with the judge. These recognizing the problems of like mental health in our community, and instead of locking people up for it, well, let's provide a program for it. Let's get them the help, the medication they need, so that we are not seeing this person back in our courtroom over and over. So again, that's the reform, and I think that is extremely important in our society to keep us going and to make Las Vegas the safest place we can.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bradford. Mr. Cooper, the question for you as well. I'm not sure if you heard the question because you were, Mr. Cooper?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Not sure if you heard the question. Did you hear the question?
I heard part of the question. I'm sorry. Can you please?
Yeah,
rephrase
so
the
the question was, Dr. Blessing, will you repeat the question for Mr. Bradford, please? Mr.
Okay.
Cooper, please.
Yeah, I was just saying, as a judge, what is the most important for you? Is it public safety, judicial conduct, or criminal justice reform?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Thank you. So I think I would have to say all three are equally and as important to me. I did hear the other candidates as they were speaking, and I 100% agree with everything they were saying regarding how reform can come from judicial conduct. And also, I honestly believe that reform comes from public safety. And the reason I say that is as I was a former prosecutor for about 7 years. And one thing I saw is that as you made the community safer, you also were able to get away from some of the other things that police may have been doing, like for example, it's not allowed for people to have property on the sidewalks, right? So if someone is experiencing homelessness and they have a large amount of property on the sidewalk, that actually is a crime. But when the police are focusing on dealing with the more important aspects of our community, those type of things aren't necessarily being worried about, and those are lower level issues. So I think that kind of works into the criminal justice reform, because unfortunately, a lot of times the people that are targeted in those type of incidences are people of lower economic status, minorities, things of that nature. So when we are focusing on the community safety, I think that works with the justice reform, and judicial conduct is always going to be the forefront of everything we have to do as a judge. I think if the judge is not doing everything they need to do appropriately, then you lose faith in the judiciary. And once you lose faith in the judiciary, there's nothing else you can do to try to gain it back. So I think all three are equally as important. And I definitely am going to strive to make sure that I accomplish all three while I'm on the bench.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're the African Chamber, and our chamber is made up of a lot of immigrants from the Caribbean and from the African continent. And so this next question resonates with us. Will you work as a judge? Will you work with public defenders to ensure non-citizen defendants are informed and aware of how criminal charges will impact their immigration status? And I'll start with the sitting judge, Judge Cynthia Dustin Cruz.
Yes, because you have to make sure that one, if you have somebody that needs language assistance, like you can't do this unless people understand what's going on. I mean, that's at the forefront of everything. So if it means that you need to provide language access to them to help them. I'm going to give example. My husband was born in the Philippines, and my husband started off where his native language was not English. And my husband speaks very fluent English at this point, but even I can talk to him and use a phrase that he gets a little lost on and he doesn't understand what I'm saying. And that's why it's so critical to make sure that you have somebody, especially in this level of things, that you provide that language assistance so that they can understand what's going on. You need to make sure that the public defender has an ability to communicate with their clients effectively. That's the same thing. Otherwise, we're not doing justice. We're just kind of running somebody through a conveyor belt, and that's not right, and that's not what our Constitution was made to do. We have many safeguards and protections, but it is the role of the judge to make sure that people understand what's going on in the courtroom and slow it down and get the assistance that somebody may need so that they can be informed, they can know what's going on, and then if something happens and anybody's going to have anything happen to them, that they understand that. And that's the same for being in the criminal court as in the civil court, because a lot of times I see people and they don't understand what's going on and they're facing eviction or they're facing somebody suing them, and they really have to know what's going on. That's the forefront. It's beyond the criminal line. It's our entire system of justice that is critical of having that level of dialogue and making sure people understand. And I'm always going to be committed to that. That's been a forefront that I've always worked on, and understanding as to how that's important. Thank you for the question.
The same question for you, Miss Renita. Marla.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I couldn't hear you. So, as you may or may not know, I am the Padilla advisor in the Clark County Public Defender's Office. What that means is I am charged with the duty of ensuring that I provide for the attorneys in my office the information they need to properly advise their non-citizen clients of the consequences of the immigration consequences of their decisions. It's a very big job for me, especially given the size of the office. It is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I am the only one in the office at this point that is charged with that duty of conducting the research and making sure that we are properly informing our clients of the consequences of their decisions and to try to provide alternatives or negotiations that can avoid imperiling a person's immigration circumstances. So it is a topic that's very important to me. Obviously, as a judge, I'm going to have a limited knowledge into the conversations that a client has with their attorney. However, I see it every day that there are indications where a client has not been properly informed, and I'm going to ensure that I ask the questions right to ensure that a client has been properly advised of the consequences of the decisions that they are facing. Obviously, I second Judge Cruz's comment that we need to ensure that there are interpreters, that there are adequate interpreters, and that we are sure that the attorney has used the interpreter when they are speaking with their clients. But I can tell you that even as a public defender, sometimes I will see a private attorney or something happen. I am quick to counsel somebody if I think that it sounds like somebody, you may need to tweak something, you may need to do something. I've been very fortunate that the district attorneys that I've worked with across the aisle have taken an interest in receiving the education about the ways that they can negotiate their cases to avoid adverse immigration consequences where it is appropriate to the case and it doesn't sacrifice safety of the community. So it is for sure something that is at the top of my list, is ensuring that non-citizen clients, non-English speaking clients are fully aware of what's happening to them and around them, and that they are making their decisions knowingly. They're actually making knowing and voluntary decisions.
Thank you so much for that. The same question goes to Ms. Bradford.
Yes, so I will absolutely make sure that they are aware of any kind of immigration consequences. I am being part of the public defender office. I actually go to Marla, and she gives us a great breakdown about how each deal can affect their immigration consequences. And to my surprise, when I do talk to my clients, a lot of them had no clue that what they're doing in justice court or what they're pleading to can now affect where they're living. Some people have worked very, very hard to get to America, very, very hard to get the status that they have, and they do not have the knowledge. And again, that's our job to make sure that they are well informed, but they don't have the knowledge to know about these unintended consequences, that it can affect their immigration status. It is extremely important for a judge in every single case to let someone know. And again, it's very important in their language. I've had a couple of clients that have had different African dialects, where we have even in some cases had to pass the case for a little bit longer to make sure we got the right interpreter, because their dialect was from such a small village. But it is extremely important to go that extra mile to make sure that they understand that what they're pleading to, or how they plead, can affect their immigration status. And then sometimes outside of even immigration consequences, there's pleas that affect all different kind of consequences. I have some clients that are on Section 8, for instance, are getting some kind of government assistance. And maybe in that government assistance, it says, well, you can't plead to certain crimes. A lot of clients, when they enter these pleas because they're afraid, or they just want to get everything over with, so they're kind of rushing to do that, they don't understand that entering into this plea may stop their government assistance, or may affect their immigration consequences. So I think it's very important as a judge to, since we are not going to be privy to any kind of attorney-client communication, to just inform the person. Has your attorney talked to you about immigration consequences? Has your attorney properly advised you? Do you understand what's going on? Do you speak English? Do you write in English? If not, what language do you have, to make sure we have the right interpreters? And really slow down with that person instead of just trying to rush or get through the calendar, or just have them plead, because of the consequences can have long lifetime results that they may not have seen. So it's extremely important for a judge to make sure that everyone is aware of any kind of unforeseen consequences, immigration, like I said, government assistance, any kind of unforeseen consequences, to just make sure that they are knowing. And that kind of goes with the plea. When judges ask, do you knowingly, willingly are entering in this plea? Well, part of knowingly is knowing those additional consequences that can be affected. So I think that is extremely important for a judge to ask those questions, to go slow. Sometimes the clients don't understand, and they may have puzzled looks on their face. And I think it's our job as a judge to kind of take that cue and say, to their public defender, to their attorney, Mr. or Mrs., can you please go and explain or answer all your clients' questions, and explain to them the consequences that I may be referring to.
Thank you so much for that answer, because it is very important for us as the African Chamber that our judicial candidate that we support is very thorough when it comes to matters like that. I will ask the same question to Ms. Ferrara. Amy?
Yes, thank you so much. I think anytime you have a litigant that either doesn't understand what's happening in court, or doesn't understand the full implications of decisions that they're making, then you're not attaining justice under any circumstance. I mean, the example you've given when it comes to immigration, that's a huge consequence. And if people don't understand the implications of the decision that they're making, then we have not achieved what we have set out to achieve. I also think that aside from immigration, there are other decisions that people make, especially when it comes to justice court, that will have consequences. For example, if somebody pleads guilty to a battery constituting domestic violence, there is an implication that they are not allowed to possess a firearm. There are people who might plead guilty to driving under the influence, and if they have a secondary arrest and conviction for that same offense, there are enhanced penalties. People need to be aware of those things so that they can make proper decisions. I also think that as a judge, if you have a pro per litigant in front of you, meaning a litigant who is unrepresented by counsel, you are the only person in that room making sure that somebody understands what is happening. And it is incumbent upon a judge, particularly when somebody doesn't have an attorney, to ensure that they are aware of all of the consequences of the decisions that they're making. Sometimes that means answering additional questions. Sometimes that means moving more slowly than you might ordinarily move if somebody is represented by counsel. Sometimes that means finding an interpreter that might not be easy to find. Oftentimes, we have very many Spanish interpreters around the courthouse, but every now and again, we have the need for a certain language interpreter that is not easy to find. And just because they're not easy to find doesn't mean that you move forward when somebody doesn't understand what's happening. I can't tell you how many times, as a sitting judicial officer now, I have litigants say, I understand most of what you're saying. Well, understanding most of what I'm saying is not good enough. I need somebody to understand everything that I'm saying, because that's the only way that we can truly achieve justice for the litigant that's before us. And so I think sometimes taking a little bit more time and really paying attention to the needs of the person who's standing in front of you is exceptionally important.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ferreira. Next question, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, thank you. Um, yeah, I 100% agree, especially related to the pro per litigant situation. So, as a hearing master now in the domestic violence protection orders, 95% of the people I deal with are pro se. So I have a lot of experience explaining exactly what's going on to everyone, making sure that they understand what they're doing, making sure they understand what the consequences are, if a protection order is granted against them, going through that whole process, because there are a lot of collateral consequences related to not only the criminal cases, but other cases I'm going to see as a justice of the peace and cases I see now as a hearing master. For example, the eviction process, making it extremely, getting an eviction on your record makes it a lot harder to get an apartment in the future, and making sure people understand the process, I found is the most critical aspect of ensuring that justice is done. Once you're able to have everyone understand everything, then I think it's a lot easier to make sure that everyone's goals are accomplished, whatever those may be. And especially that goes to when people have attorneys, because just because someone has an attorney, that doesn't mean their attorney's doing a great job for them. And we just have to be honest about that. Unfortunately, there are attorneys that are still practicing that just aren't doing their clients justice. And as a judge, I think you have to be able to see that. You have to be able to understand that, and you have to be able to correct that issue. And obviously, what you do to correct that issue just is going to be different depending on the circumstances. But I absolutely would make sure that everyone in my court knows exactly what's going on, just like I do now, because I think that is extremely critical, like all the other candidates said, to ensure that justice is served. Thank you.
You're on mute, Dr. Blessing.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Thank you everyone for your constructive feedback and responses. As the African Chambers of Commerce, we want to know why our members should vote for you.
Why should we support you? Why should we bring you back on the bench? The question is, we're going to start with Judge Cruz, then we go to Ms. Marla, Ms. Ferreira, Bradford, then Cooper, in that order.
Well, I think my track record since I've been on the bench speaks a lot. That is my hope that you will support me for my reelection to stay on the bench. I've been deeply involved with trying to improve the judicial system since I got elected. That includes doing things as to finding more revenue sources for our treatment courts. I've written grants that have brought in over $3 million in new funding to try to help get people out of the criminal justice system through the Las Vegas Justice Court treatment courts. I've also worked on the Nevada State Access to Justice Commission to work on finding ways that seems to be very sensitive with this committee. Things like we've talked about, the ability for people that may not have the financial capability to hire an attorney, for them to have better resources to access our justice system, as well as another important dialogue, language. Because I think that we have a lot of barriers that could be overcome with simple things like providing more avenues and more resources in alternative languages as opposed to English. I've got a deep history of working with people that are disenfranchised and trying to find creative and solutions that utilize our tools that we have and our resources in our community so that we can move forward with things. One of the projects that our court worked on and that I've been instrumental as well as hearing Master Ferreira is our new eviction diversion program, which is connecting people right now that are disabled and elderly, and we're going to be rolling it out to the next step with rental assistance so they cannot be evicted and they can stay in their homes. These are just a few of the projects that I've been working on, and hopefully you will continue to support me. I look forward to hopefully getting your endorsement because I think you're a member of the community and your voice should be heard. And I want to keep working forward to doing what my role is, and that's to make things better. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ms. Marla?
Yes. So I've spent over the past decade of my career, as I mentioned, defending the rights and dignity of probably the most vulnerable people in our community. And I am hoping to bring a knowledge of that to the court. The reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm running for this and going through all of this is that I care about the people. I have been disillusioned with the treatment I have seen in justice court of the human beings that appear before the court. I know as a public defender, it's often you think we just represent the homeless, we just represent people who don't have homes or don't have that. And obviously I've been an advocate during that whole time to connect my clients to those resources. But one of the things I think people need to know and that I do understand is that I represent the working poor a lot of times. These are people that are struggling to make ends meet. And it was only 14 years ago that I could say that I was in a very similar place as a lot of these people that are juggling responsibilities, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Additionally, my career has been spent advocating and protecting the rights of immigrants. I'm ensuring that my office is compliant with their ethical obligations to do that. And that's something I hope, an insight I hope to be able to bring to the court. Again, my sole goal in running for office is that I care about the law. I care about rules. I obviously care about the safety of the community and the letter of the law, but I also care about constitutional rights and protecting those. And I think it is important that the justice court be a safe place, that people can go in and have confidence in the decisions that are being rendered, that they can be before someone who has a calm and professional demeanor and is going to evaluate every case based on the facts and isn't going to let personal bias or feelings come into how they administer the law. I believe that, again, qualified diversity on the bench does promote better justice. The fact of the matter is, if the community can see people who look like them and care about them and have lived the life that they have lived, helping make these decisions about these very important life decisions about them, they are more willing to accept decisions, even sometimes when those decisions are against their interest, if they know that it is done fairly. I am the right candidate for this position, and I am hoping that I have demonstrated that I deserve your support.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford?
Hello, I actually had to pick up my children from school, but sorry, 1 second, just close the door. But I believe that you should definitely vote for me because, again, I have a lot of experience. I'm very knowledgeable on the law, and I will be a very fair and impartial judge. I really am big on giving a voice to the voiceless. It's been years where I have felt like I didn't have a voice, and that's growing up in an area where people didn't look like me, that is going to court and feeling ignored sometimes by the judges. I have seen people get disrespected in court. I've had clients tell me how they felt unheard, how they have had a rough life. And I really feel like it's important to be heard. I really feel like it is important when you step into a courtroom for the judge to recognize that you are, for the judge to see you, for the judge to hear you, for the judge to make you feel like you are seen, and not just see you, but again, make you feel like you are seen. And I believe that as a judge, that is what I will do. I will treat everyone in my courtroom with dignity, with respect. I will make sure that I am very knowledgeable on that law and can hear that case. And I'm not bringing biases into my courtroom, but I am listening to everyone. I am, again, making sure that they are heard, making sure that they are seen, and issuing a fair and impartial ruling, which is so important as a judge. We don't want to feel like someone's not seeing us, but we also don't want to feel like we've been, as my clients like to say, railroad, are being treated unfairly because of anything, because of our background, because of the way we look, because we don't have a lot of money. And I think it's so important to make sure that every single person that walks into your courtroom is heard and seen, that you are following the law and that you are fair. And I think that one thing I have learned from the job that I have worked is because I work so hard for everyone, and a lot of people feel like, oh, I have a public defender, they're not going to work hard for me. I didn't pay for this attorney, but I work hard. And I've had clients tell me, Miss Bradford, you seen me. And that's how I want you to feel when you go into my courtroom, regardless of what side you're on. I want you to be seen. So that is why I believe that you should vote for me, because I will be fair and impartial.
Thank you, Ms. Bradford. Ms. Ferreira.
Thank you. So I told everybody when I was 4 years old that I was going to be a judge. And so this has been my entire life's passion. This isn't something I just decided. This is something that has been in the works for the past 30-ish years. My grandmother used to be my caregiver when my parents were at work, and she would always make me watch the People's Court Monday through Friday with her. And we would sit there and we would talk about the cases, and we would talk about who we thought should win, how we thought the judge was going to rule, and things of that nature. And so this isn't something that I take lightly. This isn't just, oh, well, the timing was right. This has been my lifelong plan. And I think the reason why this has always been such a passion for me is because I'm obsessed with things being fair and equitable. And I think that you need somebody sitting in that seat who knows the law, who has a proper judicial temperament, and above all else, in completely unwavering dedication to justice. And I think that that's me. I think that I have always thought that our courts should work for the people that they serve and not against them. And I feel in the past, we have unintentionally created exceptional barriers to justice that we did not intend to create, but that exist. And I think we need to acknowledge those barriers, recognize those barriers, and then do what we can to change those things. There have been so many times where I have been in court as an attorney and seen certain behaviors, and I just thought this is absolutely unacceptable. I want people who come in my courtroom to feel like there's another member of the community who just happens to be sitting in that seat. And I think in a lot of ways, I represent people in our community. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have a small little farm filled with rescue animals. I'm a homeowner. The things that concern our general public concern me. I want Las Vegas to remain a safe and beautiful place for us to raise our families. I think I am strong and compassionate equally, and I think that's what we want in a judge.
Thank you so much for that. Next up, Mr. Cooper, and then we will close out. Mr. Cooper, you're up next.
Perfect. Thank you. First, I do want to apologize that I had another event that I was at earlier today. This absolutely is extremely important to me, but unfortunately, that was a prior engagement that I had to make sure I met. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to me. The reason I think you guys should endorse me, or I hope I can earn your endorsement and possibly your vote, is that I by far am the most qualified candidate for the position out of North Las Vegas. I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney, I'm currently on the bench right now. So all those things I think allow me to have a broader worldview regarding what I'm going to see on a day-to-day basis. I've been listening to the other candidates as well, and I again I agree with them. I think it's kind of a benefit to go last because these lovely ladies have been giving me a lot of good stuff to talk about. Yeah, I think it's extremely important, like Marla said, about the having qualified representation. Unfortunately, in the criminal justice system, a large portion of the people are going to be of African descent, African American. I think having someone that understands what they're going through um, in and of itself is going to be a benefit to them because when they walk into my courtroom, they're not going to have to wonder whether or not the decision I make is based on their race, based on any other factor other than what's going on in their in particular case. And I think having more representation is extremely important. I also believe that my background, like I said, I'm a veteran as well. So that gives me another broader perspective because unfortunately, a lot of veterans do find themselves in the criminal justice system. A lot of veterans find themselves in evictions through a lot of issues that come with being a veteran and the things you see when you're serving your country. But I think my entire background, the fact that I'm a lifelong Las Vegan, all that weighs into who I am as a person and allows me to be as fair as impartial as anyone can be. And I definitely can look forward to continuing my my journey of serving as the next justice of the peace in North Las Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of the Board of Directors for the African Chamber of Commerce, our president, Feva Chikolo, and all our members, I want to thank each and every one of you who participated with us this afternoon. We know your time is valuable. We know you're busy. There are a lot of conversations that are happening right now, and you took the time to spend an hour with us, and we're very grateful for that. So we wish you all the best. Thank you for answering our hard questions. We appreciate it. And so we'll see you soon, and thank you very much. We'll move into the next segment now, but thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it and look forward to hearing more from you. Thank you again.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Jo.
Yes, so now we move into the next segment, which is the candidates for Las Vegas Municipal. Is it Las Vegas Municipal Court? Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining us for the Las Vegas Municipal Court. We have Rebecca Wolfson and we have Ray Kennedy. Thank you for joining us. We have Princess Dr. Blessing with us. And of course, I am Joe Cato. I am chair of the Government Affairs Committee. And we have Dr. Princess Blessing, who is also part of that committee. So we have two people. So it will be pretty easy to go. We have a lot to talk about. We know your time is mindful. We're mindful of your time. We know you could be anyplace else. But on behalf of the African Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for taking the time to be with us. So the format is you get 1 minute to introduce yourself. And then, because it's just two candidates, then what we'll do, we'll go ahead and ask a series of questions. And then if we have questions from the audience, we will present those questions to you as well. So we'll start with you, Ms. Wolfson. 1 minute to introduce yourself to our viewing audience and our members.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope you can all hear me okay. My name is Rebecca Wolfson. I am running for Las Vegas Municipal Court, Department 5. I am born and raised here in Las Vegas, and I have been a Las Vegas city attorney for the last almost 7 years. I spent the first 4 years as a city attorney in the criminal division as a prosecutor, handling thousands upon thousands of cases within the municipal court. And about 3 years ago, I was promoted to the civil team where I've been on the defense side, and I've been able to handle a variety of different kind of cases in basically every court in the state of Nevada. So I have the real Las Vegas experience. I care about this community. I want to continue serving my community in a way that I think is best. And I think that is best served as a judge in Las Vegas Municipal Court. I think that my skills and my knowledge are best suited for this role, and I know that I will make a great judge if elected. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm ready to answer questions.
Thank you. Ms. Ray Kennedy?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Cato, for having me. I am running for Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge. I have been an attorney for almost 20 years. About half of that time has been spent doing criminal defense and civil litigation representing kids in court. And the other half of that time, I was in court administration. And so people often ask, what is court administration? And I kind of simply describe it as everyone in the courthouse who works in the courthouse, other than the judges, are hired, trained, and supervised by the court administrators. And another function that we should have is the ability to set a vision for the court and create policy for the court. It was in my role as a court administrator at Las Vegas Municipal Court that I decided to run for judge. Nearly every policy that I advanced that I believed and knew would help our community was shot down by the judges. I realized that the judges were the gatekeepers of change. And in order for me to be a positive agent of change in this community, then I needed to become a judge. I love the city of Las Vegas. I've been here almost a decade. I actually have the Welcome to Las Vegas sign tattooed on my back. I came here in the mid-90s thinking I would hate it. And lo and behold, I fell in love. And so I was fortunate enough to relocate about a decade ago. My goal is to create a community-centered court that is transparent, innovative, fiscally responsible, and efficient. And I have three main ways that I intend to accomplish that I hope I'll be able to share with the audience this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So with our next question, I'll have Princess Dr. Blessing present.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Good evening. My question is, kindly share with our viewers what the role of the court you're seeking office for. What will be the role? Thank you.
Am I answering this one first?
Yes,
I
thank
just want to
you.
make sure I got that correct. It's the role of the court.
Oh, okay. The question is, if you can share with us the role of the court you are seeking office for. I want to learn more about it, more information about it.
Sure. The Las Vegas Municipal Court handles all misdemeanors within the city of Las Vegas. So if you commit anything, it goes from trespassings to DUIs to domestic violence to vehicular manslaughters. Another aspect of the court, which a lot of people don't realize, is the municipal court judges sign every single abatement warrant that is executed within the city of Las Vegas. And what that means is any type of code violation that the city finds, I'm actually the deputy assigned right now. I prepare every single warrant that the judges sign in terms of abatements. So there is a civil aspect to it that a lot of people don't realize, but primarily the courts deal with misdemeanors every single day, probably hundreds of cases a day. It's a voluminous court. There are a lot of cases that go through the municipal court. And it's the judge's role to not only keep the court moving efficiently and effectively, but also to make sure that everybody understands what's happening in their courtroom and the consequences of their decisions and their actions. So they play a big role. Municipal court judges, municipal court is a community court. It deals with everything. It deals with the people who have mental health and substance abuse issues, but then it also deals with people out just getting a regular DUI and the people who are getting into domestic violence situations with their partners. So there are a variety of cases that the municipal court handles, but it truly is the heart of the city and it handles a variety of different cases. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Ms. Cato. Yes, it handles criminal misdemeanors. Las Vegas Municipal Court sort of distinguishes itself through the case type and then geography. So it handles misdemeanors, municipal code violations or municipal ordinance violations, as well as traffic matters that occur within the city limits proper. And it can be somewhat confusing to determine what the city limits proper are, because you can have a Las Vegas address, but not necessarily be in the city of Las Vegas proper. So there's about 20 zip codes in the city of Las Vegas. And if you live in one of those, you're in the city proper. I used to live in Spring Valley. I had a Las Vegas address, but my zip code was 89103. Not a city of Las Vegas zip code. I appreciate that Ms. Wolfson recognizes that municipal court is the court closest to the community. It's the first time I've heard her acknowledge that. And it is important that when you are thinking about the types of cases that come through Las Vegas Municipal Court, it is important to understand that if a regular, ordinary citizen is going to have an interaction with the court, it is probably going to be municipal court, because at some point in our lives, we tend to get a traffic citation. And so your interface with municipal court is really important. How you walk away feeling about your interaction with that court sets the tone for how you feel generally about public service and about other institutions in our community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kennedy. And we will go to Princess Dr. Blessing for the next question.
Thank you, ladies, for your wonderful responses. When you win the election, how will you make the judicial system more transparent?
We'll start with Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing. So one of the things that I mentioned in terms of my vision for the court is to create a community-centered court. And the first term I use is that is transparent. And there's two big ways that I intend to do that. If you go down to any courthouse on any weekday right now, more than likely the courtroom doors, excuse me, will be locked. That policy was started during COVID, understandably, to try and to sort of control the flow of traffic in the courtroom. But COVID is over and we still have courtroom doors that are locked. The truth is that every person in the community has a right to go into a courtroom and observe the proceedings. They are intended to be public and open to the community, specifically to be transparent and to ensure that our community has trust and confidence in the decisions that are being made. So for me, my courtroom door will always be unlocked. And when folks come in, they will be welcomed into my court. I'm a fan of court watch programs because I do think it makes a difference when our community is involved in the courtroom. People will not be asked with suspicion which case they're there for, because the truth is they don't have to be there for a case. They can be there simply to observe. And the second way that I intend to be transparent is to share the data from the court. Right now, if you try to determine what the recidivism rates are for a particular department, how many cases have come through, anything that I think is important for the community to know, it's difficult to find that. One of the things that I intend to do is to create a community advisory council made up of leaders across the valley who will meet with me on a quarterly basis. I will share the court's data with them so that they can give me feedback about how I can improve my performance, and most importantly, how we can improve the outcomes for folks who come before the court. So those are the two main ways that I intend to be much more transparent and create a transparent court.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you for the question. I believe that the courts are or should be inherently transparent. They're open to the public. The public should be able to walk in at any point and observe what a judge or what the courtroom is experiencing. I want to be the type of judge that when you walk in, the judge is on the bench. I've experienced in my years practicing in Las Vegas that there are judges that will sometimes sit on the bench even when cases aren't being called. And at that time, it allows for dialogue to occur with the people who are in the courtroom. I've also experienced judges that only come in for those specific cases that are called, and then once that case is over, they get off the bench. I want to be the judge that is on the bench until all of the cases are done. I don't want to leave the bench. I want to be there to answer any questions that are coming to me, whether it's from a defendant, whether it's from a victim, whether it's from a witness. I want to be the person who is able to provide them information and access to that information if they don't already have it. I believe in keeping my door open, an open door policy. I want people to come in and ask me questions. I also believe in getting the community more involved within the courts to open up that transparency and to allow for more dialogue and discussion around the court system. So hopefully it will lead to improvement within the court system, but also if I need to make changes or if I'm not doing something correctly, that way they can present that to me and bring it to my attention. However, I hope to be doing things that are up to ethical standards and that are judicially appropriate and conduct a courtroom that is fair and equitable for all people that walk in.
Thank you so much for that answer. The next question I have is, what should the role of the judiciary be in ensuring equal access to justice for all city residents, regardless of immigration status? And we'll start with you, Ms. Wolfson.
Thank you. I think knowledge is one of the most important things that our court can provide. I think at times information that should be readily available is not readily available through the court process. Even though the Las Vegas Municipal Court is a misdemeanor court for only crimes that occur within the city jurisdictional limits, that doesn't mean that we aren't able to answer questions that are related to things outside of those jurisdictional limits. I think immigration is a very important aspect. It's something I dealt with as a prosecutor. There were times that my negotiations would be based on someone's immigration status and the consequences of either entering into a plea for a certain charge or the consequences of not entering into those pleas or serving jail time. I think it's all relevant. And like I said, knowledge is the most important part. And I think that giving people more knowledge will only better the system and provide for a more equitable judiciary. And as a judge, I hope to be able to be that avenue and that leader for the court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kennedy? Ms.
Thank
Kennedy?
you, Ms. Cato. So I think when you talk about access to justice and speaking specifically to the immigrant community, I think there's three important things to keep in mind. The first thing to keep in mind is that it is important for immigrants to be able to see that the court system has an array of individuals working there that reflect their community's values, diversity, and culture. And so if I'm elected to the bench, I will be the first Black judge who has ever served in Las Vegas Municipal Court. And it is important because representation and diversity matter. When folks who come into the court see other people working in the courtroom, and in particular in positions of authority, who look like them, that goes a long way to making them believe and feel comfortable that there is a path to access to justice. The second thing that I think is important is in terms of language barriers that we have. Everywhere where I have worked as an administrator, and I did 4.5 years at family court. I was an administrator as the chief appeals referee for the state of Nevada. And then as a public defender in Wisconsin, I was a local attorney manager and a regional attorney manager. Making sure that all of our forms were in, at a minimum, the top 3 languages for that community was very important. I think and the third thing that I think is really important is knowledge. It's important for individuals to understand what the consequences are for a criminal conviction, pleading to a municipal ordinance violation, or pleading to a traffic matter. I was a criminal defense attorney for 8 years, a very proud public defender, and that was part of my responsibility, was to make sure that my clients understood what the consequences were for a criminal conviction. We all know, or should know, that even with misdemeanor convictions, there are over 200 collateral consequences for individuals. It is not something to be taken lightly, and those consequences can be magnified when you are an immigrant. When I was practicing criminal defense, I had a judge who wanted to just ask people in court, are you a US citizen? And I made sure that he did not do that. There is a specific language and a questionnaire that you go through to make sure that they understand the consequences. That does not require you or to ask them about their citizenship status or for them to reveal that in open court. So making sure that we have diversity and representation in the courthouse, making sure that people are given the knowledge that they need, and making sure that information is available in their native language, I think is extremely important for the immigrant communities.
Thank you. Dr. Blessing, will you, the next question?
Yeah, thank you so much. Nice and calculative responses. My question is, what is your philosophy on punishment of youths? And what do you view as the biggest gaps in needs for our youth? And as a judge, how do you plan to address those issues?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing. So I will say that my philosophy in general, in terms of addressing the behaviors of folks who come through the criminal legal system, is that jail plays a role, but it should not be the star of the play. And far too often, we have created a narrative to the community that either somebody gets a slap on the wrist and there's no consequences, or they need to be sent to jail for the maximum period of time. And in fact, my experience in municipal court was that the prosecutors, the city attorney's office, would recommend the maximum jail time, set that aside to place them on probation for nearly every case. I did not see individualized determinations of what would be appropriate responses to people's behaviors. So I don't think that jail is the only answer. I think that we have a ton of responses to people's behavior that we can use, and far too often we don't, because we don't take the time to get to understand why this person is in front of you in the first place. People love to talk about the volume in Las Vegas Municipal Court, and there's a lot, but the truth is that crime is down in the city of Las Vegas in every category except for car theft. The truth is that case filings have been going down for the last 7 years. There is more than enough time in the day for judges to take a moment to pause and to learn as much information as they can about the individual before them to figure out which resource, which support system, which approach is going to be the most effective to address their behavior. And so when it comes to youth, the Las Vegas Municipal Court does not handle cases involving juveniles under the age of 18, but it does obviously involve young adults, 18 to 27, whose brains have still not fully developed. And there are additional implications for that I think a judge needs to understand and take into account. The person who is elected to Department 5 in Las Vegas Municipal Court at this moment will oversee one of the specialty courts that is specifically geared toward youthful offenders. Having represented juveniles in the juvenile delinquency system, having a background in social work, a master's degree, having done therapy with youth, that was my concentration in graduate school, having received basic and advanced training in mediation from the Saltman Center at Boyd Law School, I am confident that I have the skills to be able to figure out exactly how to approach young adults to address their behavior in a way that will be effective.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you for the question. I think that that's a very important question that is specific to the municipal court. I think that when you're young, and what I mean by that is over the age of 18 and before the age of 25 to 28, you have the ability to transform your life. I think you can do that at any stage, sure, but when you're young, especially, I think it's the most important. If you're already in the system within that time frame, you have the ability to hopefully change the route that you're on, and hopefully the court is designed and prepared to help you through that. The Las Vegas Municipal Court Department 5 Youth Offender Program is a fantastic program. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it, how it can change people's lives and set them up for hopefully a successful future. And I want to not only utilize that program, but I want to expand upon it. I think that right now, the way it's operating, yes, it's great, but I think it leaves out a lot of people that truly need help too. A lot of people who are out there getting in trouble for misdemeanors within the city of Las Vegas that are considered the youth are people that truly don't have the resources around them to help themselves, whether they're new to town or they've been here and they're in a bad place in life. The municipal court is there and can provide the resources to help them. But in terms of my philosophy on youth getting in trouble, I think that is the heart of Las Vegas Municipal Court Department 5. I think that's where the real change can happen. And I truly am excited at the opportunity to be a part of it and to hopefully implement new and better changes to make the court an even better place to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So we have a question from one of our member, Ali B. And the question is, we'll show that. What are some of the policies that you have tried to advance that were shot down? So I'll start with Ms. Kennedy.
So how much time do we have, Ms. Cato? I'll just mention a few of them. So one of the policies and programs that I wanted to implement at Las Vegas Municipal Court was a court reminder system. When you schedule your doctor's appointment, your doctor sends you a reminder beforehand because they understand that life happens. It doesn't mean that you're irresponsible or that your appointment isn't important to you. It simply means that we get involved in so many other things that it's nice to be reminded to put it back on your radar. I had applied and received assistance from Stanford Law School, their legal design lab. They were going to give us the software. They were going to integrate it into the municipal court's case management system, because what they wanted to try and figure out was, we have decades of research that tells us that when we send a letter or postcard, or when we make a call to someone to remind them of their court appearance, it is the most cost-effective way to cut down on people missing court. And there are all sorts of consequences when people miss court. So we want them to come into court. We want them to get their case resolved. And so Stanford was willing to help us with that. They wanted to also test whether text messages would be just as effective as calling or sending a letter or a postcard. And the answer from the judges was no. And when I pushed back, because this was fairly close to the end of my time at municipal court, the response to me was, we're not here to hold their hands. And I was extremely disappointed by that response. I was also angered by that response. And it is what fueled me to decide to run for Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge. So that's just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They told me that they weren't willing to do for our community.
Thank you. Ms. Wolfson.
Question was necessarily designed for me to answer. I never said that I tried to implement policies that were shot down.
Okay. So it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. Okay, we have another question from another member. What experience do you have working with people dealing with mental issues or that are in a financial crisis? Have you had an experience with that you could answer? If not, we could move on.
Yes, I have had years of experience working with people that have mental health issues and that are dealing with financial crisis. I saw it every single day in the Las Vegas Municipal Court. I think that mental health is a very big problem within the city of Las Vegas. I mean, I think it's a big problem nationally and globally, but we're dealing with the city of Las Vegas. I think that there are a lot of people that are struggling not only with mental health, but substance abuse. I think they go hand in hand at times, and I think they're somewhat intertwined. And I think they also are intertwined with people dealing with financial issues. I think that municipal court deals with this more often than any other court because of the type of court and the types of cases that it handles. I personally have a lot of experience dealing with this. There were many days, pretty much every day, where I would be negotiating cases with people who weren't entitled to have a lawyer. What I mean by that is the law didn't allow for it just based on the type of crime. So I would be negotiating firsthand with these individuals, especially in traffic court. And every single day I would have people come up to me and tell me that they don't have the money to pay these fines. So I would work with them to create a solution that would best fit them and best fit their situation. And if they needed to get into a specialty court in terms of mental health issues, or they needed to talk to a counselor, I would refer them to that department or refer their lawyer to go to that department. So I have firsthand experience dealing with this type of situation, and I'm ready to tackle it as a judge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cato. Well, I think it's important. Sure.
Do you see the question?
No, I got it. I think it's important to distinguish the difference between prosecuting someone and maybe having a conversation with them about what you are going to recommend to the judge, and actually working with people who have mental health issues or who are in a financial crisis. So as someone who has a social work background and represented individuals as a criminal defense attorney for 8 years, now representing kids in court who are experiencing mental health issues. That experience is very different than being someone who prosecuted them or had a conversation with them. What happens when you actually work with folks is you take on sort of some of the secondary issues of what they're experiencing because you care about the outcome of the people who you are representing. And so I have a ton of experience working with individuals who have mental health issues. I've also done additional training to try to understand, in particular, people who might be experiencing auditory hallucinations, what that is like for them, and being able to understand that it makes it really difficult for them to concentrate on the person who is speaking to them or on their surroundings when they are experiencing those types of mental health symptoms. I also have worked with people who are in financial crisis. When you're a public defender, all of your clients are indigent. That is how they qualify. Right now, I represent kids. They don't have money. One of the policies that I tried to advance in municipal court was to make sure that everyone had an individualized determination of their ability to pay a fine. And again, I was told no. The feedback to me was that there was a concern that people would be dishonest so that they wouldn't have to pay their fine. I do not believe that the vast majority of people in our community are dishonest. I believe that they will tell us the truth. But in any event, I said, well, we can start small. How about we start with folks with whom we can verify that they are receiving public assistance? Most of our nonprofit services use that as the gateway to determine whether someone can qualify for their program. And still, the answer was no. And so as a judge, I will be very cognizant of working with individuals who have mental health issues. And for sure, I will uphold their constitutional right to have an individualized determination of their ability to pay.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Ms. Wolfson, we have a question that is specifically for you. So it's from one of our members. Attorney Wolfson, how do you plan on helping the youth? What specific plan or resources you have identified to help them out of that spot?
I think that that's a great question. Thank you for that question. I think that creating a community for someone who doesn't necessarily have that community to begin with is extremely important. And if that means that the court then becomes their community, then I want to be a part of that. I think that the court has a very important role in terms of the youth offender program, and it creates a community not only with the other people who are participating in it, but it creates a community with the court. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people who have graduated the program, who have come back to visit, who are still involved within the program to a certain extent, whether that's a mentorship or they're engaging with the other members who are a part of that court. So not only do I want to take what's already there, but I want to make it even bigger. I want to get other parts of the community, other members who are out there making big changes within our community. But also we have a lot of big new things coming to our city. We've got a lot of different sports teams that I know are very philanthropic and that enjoy helping people that need help. And I've spoken firsthand with a lot of people who want to get involved within this youth offender program. And if I am elected, I plan to call them and to get them involved and to see what they can do to engage the community and to engage the court and to make it an even bigger program than what it currently is, and to allow more participants to be involved within it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson. Ms. Kennedy, we have a question for you that's from viewer Robbins. Ms. Kennedy, do you think holding an administrative position help you in your role as a judge? If so, how?
Well, thank you for that question. And the answer is absolutely yes. So I have had experience in front of the bench representing individual clients, both in criminal and civil cases, including jury trial experience, which is important because you now have the right to a jury trial in municipal court. And then I have experience behind the bench, understanding how things happen behind the scenes. And so when I talk to our community about the kinds of characteristics or traits they want a judge to have, I often hear they want them to have experience. What I don't think most people in our community understand is what that experience really means. I think everybody agrees that they want the judge to have practiced the kinds of cases over which they will be presiding. And I certainly have that experience. But what I think the public needs to understand is that they also want a judge who has policy development experience, which I have in spades. And certainly that was one of the roles that I played as a court administrator at Las Vegas Municipal Court, because the judges set the vision and the policy for the court. So they set the rules in terms of what's going to happen when a person comes through that criminal legal system at the municipal court level. And I'll give you an example of one of those policies. So if someone is unable to pay their fine, they can be placed on a payment plan. However, when I was working there, if they missed a payment, a warrant was put out for their arrest, as if they had committed a new offense. That is not a law that is required. That is a policy. That is a rule that the judges put into place and place that burden on our community. And so it's important for the public to understand that a judge needs to have policy development experience. And the third area is they need to have leadership and management experience, because judges manage the employees in their courtroom. And if they've never managed before, or they don't have good management or leadership skills, of which I have 15 years, then the courtroom can very quickly devolve into a toxic environment. And so, yes, I absolutely think that having experience as an administrator is invaluable to my role as a judge.
Okay, thank you so much. So in the essence of time, we have 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up, because we know that your schedules are very busy and you probably have had a very long day. So we have a question from viewer Johnson, and her question is, judges, if you're a judge, what is your views on dealing with repeat domestic violence offenders and protection of women from further abuse, if these matters are heard in your particular court? And I'll start with Ms. Wolfson.
Thank you for that question. Domestic violence is a big problem. And one of the aspects of domestic violence is that it's an enhanceable offense. So if you get a first conviction of domestic violence, it's, depending on the severity of the injuries, typically a misdemeanor, depending on, like I said, severity of injuries. But if you're in the Las Vegas Municipal Court for a domestic violence first offense, that is a misdemeanor. However, if then you go out and you get a second offense within 7 years, it becomes enhanceable. Now, a second offense is also a misdemeanor, so it is something that the Las Vegas Municipal Court will see as well. And I saw it many years, many times. But if you get a third domestic violence offense, then it becomes a felony, and that goes over to district court and is no longer within the municipal court's jurisdiction. One aspect of the municipal court is having the knowledge of how many times has this person had this conviction, and are they back? Is it the same victim? Is the woman okay, or man, because domestic violence goes both ways. I've seen both men and women as victims of domestic violence, but ensuring the safety of the victims in the courtroom and outside of the courtroom is of utmost importance to me. I've seen time and time again domestic violence cases set for trial, and I had communication with the victim witness, and then that victim witness does not show up to court. And I would then take steps to ensure that, are they okay? Why didn't they come to court? Is this their decision, or is someone essentially preventing them from coming to court? These are all really important aspects of domestic violence within the Las Vegas Municipal Court. Now, a judge's role is limited in terms of the communication that you can have with victims and with witnesses. However, that is something that can be asked of the other people in the courtroom, the city, the prosecution, the defense. These are things, this is information that a judge should know and be aware of, especially with the cases before them. And that can be addressed during the initial arraignment. It can be addressed at pretrial. It can be addressed at sentencing, and it can be addressed at status checks. So this is something that continuously can be checked up upon to ensure that not only is the person okay, but is the defendant completing what's being asked of them or what they've agreed to ensure that something like this doesn't occur again in the future? I think that the classes that people are attending when they're sentenced to domestic violence as a charge can sometimes be helpful when the person takes it seriously and when the person gives the program what it really deserves. However, I think a lot of times that kind of falls to the wayside, and that people aren't necessarily taking accountability and taking responsibility for their actions. So I want to be able to get in the court and see what's happening in my courtroom and see what the programs and services and classes are providing to these individuals. And then if changes need to be made, I want to make those changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Ms. Cato. So I have a great deal of experience working with individuals who have committed acts of domestic violence. And in fact, I was the head of the domestic violence practice group while I was at the public defender's office. One of the things that I understand, taking a look at decades of research that we have in criminal justice and understanding how to prevent crime and how to work with folks most effectively when they come through our system, is that people have a misnomer that domestic violence is about anger. It is not about anger, because oftentimes you see that these individuals can maintain their emotions quite effectively when they're dealing with individuals outside of their family or their intimate partner. What we need to understand is that it is a complex system of things that are happening with this individual. And one of the things that I advocate and am advocating for is to implement research-based decisions and best practices at Las Vegas Municipal Court. Again, another policy that I wanted to implement, and specifically in our probation department, that I was told no. It is important not to assume or use bad or old information in terms of addressing domestic violence. When you have a repeat domestic violence offender, the research tells us that you need to address their violations immediately and as quickly as possible. One of the ways that you can look at how you can try to address their behavior is by using GPS. That is a good way to place perimeters or barriers around the individual against whom they have offended. And then when we're alerted that they have violated that boundary, address that immediately. Right now at Las Vegas Municipal Court, if you place someone on GPS, they're monitored only when the court is open. They're not monitored in the evening. They're not monitored on weekends. So if a violation occurs, that isn't addressed or even known until the next business day. So I think it's important that you, number one, as a judge, understand the dynamics of domestic violence. And number two, put into place evidence-based decisions or best practices that are the most effective way to address repeat domestic violence offenders. Now, as Ms. Wolfson mentioned, we would only see individuals who have a first or potentially a second domestic violence charge. But I think that we should consider looking at a domestic violence specialty court. It is something that I floated as an administrator, and I was told that they didn't think that the community wanted a court like that. I beg to differ. And in Milwaukee, where I practice criminal defense, we had a domestic violence specialty court. And as the head of the domestic violence practice group, I attended each one of those probation review hearings in order to determine what was happening with the individuals on our caseload and how the court was addressing those individuals and responding to their behavior. So I think it's important when you're talking about DV to understand it and to address it using practices that are effective.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kennedy and Ms. Wilson. And so thank you both for taking the time to participate in our conversation, our judicial conversation. I noticed, Ms. Wilson, you're running for Department 5. Ms. Kennedy, which department are you running for? Was not on your.
Here, let me move my head a little bit. There you go. It is also Department 5. You and Ms. Wilson are running against each other.
So both candidates are running for Department 5. So this is great. We have the opportunity to hear both candidates together. So that will help our viewers and our members to make an informed decision as to the candidate of their choice. Early voting is Saturday, May 25th to June 7th, and the primary is June 11th. So before we go, 1 minute to each candidate. Why should we vote for you? And we will start with Ms. Wolfson.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time tonight, and I appreciate being a part of this forum. I think that I am the best candidate because I have the right experience for this job. I also think that I'm running for this job for the right reasons. I know that if I am elected, I will make a great judge. I am fair, I am firm, and I'm compassionate. I care about this community and I care about the people that are in this community, but I also care about the people who come to Las Vegas and visit our community. I think that the Las Vegas Municipal Court is a very important role and should be handled by someone who has the ability to not only work well with the other judges, but work well with the community. And I know that I have both of those qualities. So thank you again for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And I hope I've earned your consideration and your vote. Thank you.
Are welcome. Ms. Kennedy, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cato. Well, I think that people should vote for me because I can be distinguished from my opponent in several ways. The first is through experience. So as I mentioned, I've been a licensed attorney for almost 20 years. I have both criminal and civil experience as well as jury trial experience. I've been a manager for 15 years. I have court administration experience. Over my 26 plus year career, I've been a social worker, an advocate, an educator, a mediator, a trial attorney, and I've been an administrator. And so I have the greatest depth of experience to bring to the bench. I understand how things work before the court, in front of the bench, as well as behind the bench. The second reason is because I actually have a vision for the court. I want to create a specific type of court that is community-centered, that is transparent, that is innovative, efficient, and fiscally responsible. I want to do that, as I mentioned, by implementing research-based decisions and best practices, by making sure that we are getting community input. So I intend to create a community advisory council and being transparent with the data so that we can improve the outcomes for folks who come before our court. And the third way is by treating everyone with dignity and respect. And I know that every judicial candidate says that, but I understand that there is a difference between addressing someone's behavior and addressing them as a human being. And far too often we look at this snapshot in their life, this one action that they have engaged in, and we assume that that is the entirety of their character. And it is not. Having worked with individuals and represented individuals for many years, I know that that is probably one of their lowest moments in life. And so as a judge, I understand that I can address their behavior without disrespecting the inherent dignity of their humanity. Some of the judges prior from tonight's program talked a lot about how their clients discussed feeling disrespected and unheard. I heard those same complaints from clients. And I think that I have that understanding so that people will walk away feeling as though they were heard, they were respected, and their humanity was taken into account. And so I think that it is important that the court or the community join me in appreciating that representation and diversity are important. And I hope together we can make history in Las Vegas. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thank you to both candidates. And on behalf and to our viewers, we have a flood of questions. We cannot get through all the questions tonight, but what we will do, we will make a screenshot to keep the integrity of the questions, and we will send those questions off to the candidates, and they can respond to your Facebook page because we have a lot of questions for you both, but we understand we'll be here all night. And so we'll get the questions over to you. And I just want to say thank you to the candidates for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Blessing, for part of the African Chamber on behalf of our president, Feva Chikolo, our members and our board of directors. We appreciate you for taking the time to be with us tonight and for the great questions we have. And for our viewers, we have a lot of viewers watching, and thank you so much. We like to see that. We like to see the community engage. We wish you well on your journey in this new journey that you're going on for the judgeship. So we wish you all the best. Dr. Princess Blessing, would you like to say anything before we wrap up? I guess not. So with that, I'll say thank you so much and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Tiffany Eklor. We appreciate that.